This is the Wait Just an Infosec podcast, your weekly opportunity to tap into the minds of some of the world's foremost cybersecurity experts. Wait Just an Infosec is a weekly show live streamed on SANS Institute social media channels on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The show features a wide range of guests from across the InfoSec community. Whether we're diving into the weeds of the latest data breach or exploring the security implications of groundbreaking technology such as generative AI, each episode brings you new insight to keep you engaged in the industry, feed your fire for knowledge, and amplify your value as an InfoSec practitioner. Join the SANS community and gain free access to cutting-edge industry news, cybersecurity resources like technical research, and tools that can't be found elsewhere. Subscribe for free today at sans.org/join.
Applying psychological principles to educating end users about cybersecurity is nothing new. Security awareness teams have long relied on behavioral science to influence best practices. But cyberpsychology as a unique discipline is having a moment, and its implications go far beyond Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Join us for this episode of Wait Just an Infosec, where SANS' Rich Greene moderates a discussion with Juliet Okafor and Dr. Stacy Thayer, where they answer questions like, what is cyberpsychology? How can it make security teams better at everything from monitoring SIEM logs to conducting large-scale incident response? And how can you leverage the knowledge of this emerging field? After that, you'll get to hear from Black Girls Hack founder Tennisha Martin and COO Rebekah Skeete, brought to you by #ShareTheMicInCyber.
What we're going to discuss next is I'm going to have a wonderful conversation with Rich Greene. It'll be moderated by him, along with Dr. Stacy Thayer. And as a group, we'll discuss some of the major conversations that are impacting cybersecurity. Hi, Rich. Hey, Stacy.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Jules.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
All right.
I know me
So
personally.
I'd love for you all to introduce yourselves. I think the audience is very familiar with me at this point. I'd love to hear from you, Rich, and then we'll end with Dr. Thayer.
No, absolutely. I just want to say I was super excited when I heard about the opportunity to come onto this particular session. I won't lie when somebody said, human behavior and cybersecurity, I want to run and hide because I'm definitely one of those people that's very technical, maybe too technical, as you said. But when given the opportunity to kind of hear the other side and see exactly how much I probably already do, I had to jump at the opportunity.
I love that. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Dr.
All right. Hi. Yeah. I'm Dr. Stacy Thayer. I'm a cyber psychologist. I teach at Norfolk State University's cybersecurity program. And then I run a podcast called Cyberpsych through a company called Netography. And so I've been kind of bridging the gap between human behavior and the security industry for what feels like forever. I've spoken at Black Hat and RSA about burnout, about autism, all sorts of stuff from the behavioral side, less the technical side. But it's one of the things that I really love to do is dig into the human component of cybersecurity, because it's something that we deal with every single day, whether you realize it or not, that we're all humans. The end users are humans. The hackers are humans. Everybody's human. And so if we don't listen to that and understand those behaviors, then where does that leave cybersecurity itself?
Definitely. And just for the audience's awareness, my company, Revolution Cyber, we've been around since about 2019. When I started the company and I would have these conversations about the fact that I thought security was fundamentally flawed, people would look at me like I was crazy. And they would assume, because I lacked the technical know-how, that I didn't know what I was talking about. Because there is a stage, and I'll find the video, but there's a stage where I was speaking to an audience of executives, and I said, one of the biggest benefits that security could provide to its employees is to develop the whole person, right? So developing the skill sets around burnout, how to handle stress, how to manage, balance various areas of your life between work and family. And all of these things actually are coming to a head now at the very same time. So we're seeing lots of people being laid off. We're seeing an industry that is coalescing And then we're also seeing people making a decision to leave the industry because of just how much it requires to be here. And so that doesn't get lost on the way that we handle cybersecurity as an industry. What would you say are some other things we should think about as we're at, like, for a CISO, for instance? What are some things around people development and hiring, retention of people that they should think about in the cybersecurity space?
Sure. Well, I always encourage people to look at the team that they have. I know there's a lot of times of security is understaffed. And so there's the team you want and the team that you want to have, either via numbers, via skill sets. And then to try and look at what their strengths and weaknesses are. So look at each one as an individual, what their strengths and their weaknesses and what they're going through, and to take what's kind of a holistic model of it, because people are getting burnt out. They are taking on these responsibilities. They are watching the clock 24/7 to try and figure out a industry that is moving so fast. So I can tell you from the cyber psychology research side, as soon as we try and say, okay, we're going to research something, there's some new technology, there's some new vulnerability. And so you're always trying to keep ahead. And so to work with the team and balance, because I think with CISOs, not only are they balancing working with teams, managing managers, they're also trying to communicate to senior levels, whether it be to a board, to a CEO. And sometimes you need to use those human connections to communicate very technical things that people don't understand, right? It's like anybody who's technical, I'm sure you've tried to explain the logistics of something and seen that glassy-eyed person and it just says, why can't I just have password 1234, right? Like, that's what I remember. It's like, oh, here, okay, no. And so how do you connect to that person to get them to understand the hows and the whys when the technical component isn't there? And so that's one of the things that I really love about cyber psychology as a field, is it is literally bridging that gap between technology and psychology. So not just psychology, but really, how do they interact with technology? How can you develop technology? And then how is technology affecting people? So as you're a CISO and you're purchasing products and, you're walking that amazing show floor at RSA with the sights and the sounds and oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like, what is happening to my brain? And it's like, okay, when you choose something and you choose that technology, then how are your teams going to use it to most effectively to protect yourself? So, those are just some of the reasons. I could probably talk the whole 30 minutes about it, but I won't. I'm very passionate about it.
I know I had a question for both of you, and I was kind of thinking about this because I know we've seen just the magnitude of the breaches that have been happening here recently. A lot of them do kind of teeter on the forefront, the lead way being, social engineering. How exactly does, cyber psychology or, human behavior play into that? Is this something that could have been avoided by having more of that cyber psychology or human aspect? Is it unavoidable? What are some of your thoughts on that?
So my initial response is that the biggest threat to cybersecurity is bureaucracy and silos. And the reason why I say this is that oftentimes where collaboration and innovation happens are when people connect. And the way that companies are set up today, they're not optimized for speed. In fact, they're designed to slow processes down in order to ensure stability. So what I've seen is the successful organizations that are looking to leverage cyber psychology, they're connecting people with different skill sets, but they're also taking security from being kind of away and in the SOC, and they're bringing it into the business. So they're thinking to themselves, how do we get a security person on business teams? How do we get a security either expert or product security person to work closely with the developers? Because it's more important that a security person have understand the psychological makeup of the way the developer develops than that the developer understand anything about the security person. So what we're seeing is if you can reduce the walls and have people communicate where we as security experts put ourselves out to listen and learn, I find over and over again, you have no choice but to come up with better solutions. And I've seen that over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I support that. I think that it comes down to communication. It comes down to a lot of awareness too. And taking a second to think twice. And I think one of the things that happens is when people are busy, when we're understanding that the world moves very quickly. So how do we take that second? We have to meet each other in the middle. So where you've got the deeply technical folks who know, okay, why would you click the dancing bears? You click the dancing bears. Why did you do that? Right. Versus the person who's thinking there's no harm in clicking the dancing bears. I'm showing my age here. But that there has to be a happy medium about communication. And to Jules' point of breaking down those silos and giving those CISOs and security team a platform to communicate and to communicate intelligently, and to get the organization to listen and respect the whys. I find that a lot of times when people can understand really why, what it leads to, that somebody who's sitting there at their desk, just thinking about, oh, my password is so frustrating, why do I have to change it every day? They don't really understand why, what the domino effect of that is. And so it's not just about educating them about, okay, this is what you do. These are steps 1 through 2, and how to recognize a social engineering attack. Teach them why it matters, why somebody who's social engineering is doing it, what their tools are. So you can kind of get in their head and show that empathy and compassion, because that's really where the learning takes when it becomes an emotional journey. People remember how they felt.
Yes.
And sometimes not always what they're told. And so if you can remember that and try to connect to them and not necessarily FUD, but really this is why and how, that's going to connect to a neuron that already exists, versus one that's like, oh wait, what was that? I'm supposed to, use my dog's last name from its 5th birthday on the 10th of November. Right. Okay. Whatever it is, we need to help people with where they are and lead them to it so they understand.
And then 2 other things. It's got to align with human nature. So if we're asking people to do things that is not natural to them, they're going to default back to what the normal setting is. So the world is fast. And whenever security asks people to slow down, we're asking them to do something other than what they're used to. So if you don't have a motivation that's tied to something they personally care about, you're going to lose them. But I think even beyond that, it needs to be built into their daily practices. So it's got to be something they can do in the flow of their work, because they're not going to, do the password manager if the password manager requires them to log into too many systems. It doesn't work, and people just develop their own fiefdom and find ways about. That's what I see repeated, and we continue to create technology that doesn't assume that people are going to default back to their human nature.
No, I think you were both spot on, and something popped up that is put there now. Ed Venus says, I like your tackle in this area. We get accustomed to automation and systems. The human aspect is missing. I think as technology ramps up and it gets so fast, we dump all that time and technology and all those resources into making the best use of AI, ML, increasing our systems and our automation. And we kind of take a step back and kind of just don't forget about the human nature, but maybe we only talk about it during October. We don't think about, the other 11 months that might exist.
Mm-hmm. Can I talk to you about the fact that one of my marketing strategies for my company is to wait till November? Literally, the competition is reduced by 90% in terms of messaging. So even in organizations, I suggest to security, don't pick just October, pick another month where there's less competition, because we've got Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I think it's Small Business Month. There are a number of things that happen in October. So you want to make sure you're building it in small either events or messaging throughout the year. It should be a 12-month engagement.
No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think people need to remember, again, the hows and the whys, and that constant awareness, because people do forget. Change is hard. Said to me, you want to try change, try brushing your teeth with the other hand. And I do. And
I'm ambidextrous, so I can do both.
It's
oh,
so
now you're fancy, Jules.
uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable to do. It's messy. It's ugly. It's just, why am I doing this? But it really is. I did it for about a week, and then 2 weeks, I thought, wow, change is hard. It's discipline. It's remembering. It's something, sometimes even the most simple things. So it's that constant awareness, but also, I think a lot of times with the security industry, we don't celebrate the wins, because the wins are a day you don't get breached. Yay!
Yes.
Like, actually celebrate that. Like, hey, this is, we walked, I worked at a company where they would call a meeting and then someone would walk around and see how many laptops were left unlocked. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I'm not going to lie. But you know what? Do that regularly, and as it gets better and better and better, like celebrate that. Like celebrate the non-losses, because just because you didn't lose, that is actually a win, depending on how you look at it. And I think sometimes we forget to celebrate the way that what cybersecurity does. I mean, even in our own home, when was the last time you came home, disarmed your locks, and said thanks? Right? Like it's so easy to take for granted.
And I think that the way that we think about awareness as a whole should shift. I think one of the biggest challenges I see with the awareness programs is we think that it has one job. Awareness is designed to educate users in this way at this time of year, and that's not the case. Your awareness program is the voice of the security program. It has a certain tone. It has relationships with other departments. It should even have visual imagery. It should be branded to communicate or convey a certain thing about your program. So if you want to be friendly, seen as friendly, you want to include those kinds of images. But I also like to say, you can tell the strength of a culture, not in the awareness program, the traditional one. It's in the way the stakeholders interact with security. Because if we're finding that IT and security aren't working on bringing new technologies into the organization, legal and security don't work on incorporating new vendors and reviewing contracts, then you can see, no matter how general the awareness, the risks still grow because people are still making decisions that are security decisions without considering security. So the idea is, how do we expand and decentralize awareness so that the organization actually takes awareness upon itself? And that's what it looks like. Champions. It looks like, regular conversations between the security leader and the board. And there are often communications about new threats, right? And so recently, none of us can ignore the conversations about AI, SEC, MGM, and Okta. And yet those are not traditionally part of an awareness program because they would have to be, those are typically pre-built. You need to have really incidents to tell a story. And I think we need to be better about that, I think, long term.
Jules, I can tell you right now, if Lance is still watching, he loved everything you just said, and he's probably cheering from his room right now on everything you literally just said about security awareness. Absolutely. He is huge on the program. And really everything you mentioned was spot on, and you really are right. It really comes down, your program needs to be, top down. It needs to be pulled in by everybody. They need to show it. They need to show that they care about it. And it just kind of trickles down through as everybody knows. But I will say really quick, I'm going to mention the one thing I remember from high school psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But I am curious, is there a way we can kind of take that same theory and bring it over to cybersecurity? Can it still do the same things that it did on the human side in cybersecurity?
I'll have Stacy go first.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I took it and built a burnout model about based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes. So I would absolutely say that for somebody who's probably a little more tech minded than I am in that, but to go in and here's the components of what it is that you need to get all the way up to what would hopefully be an ideal best practice security program. And it's you need buy-in, you need a solid team, you need to be able to have the resources. And can you get that? Just like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you need to have your food and water, right? You need those basic components to be able to build upon that, to ultimately be able to get that buy-in. And I loved what Jules said about there has to be universal connection and support. And it is indicative from leadership as to how the security program is framed and how aware of security people are. I'm a big advocate for those CISOs having a seat at the board and being able to communicate that and to integrate it, that it's not just under one technical component, but that security and IT needs need to work together, but they also have different needs. We need to recognize that. And so I think you could absolutely build that into Maslow to build that up to, okay, so where do we get to the point? When is the right time to incorporate other people? When do we have enough knowledge and a solid enough program that we can really create awareness without changing it a lot? And how do we evolve while making sure that we're not going too fast for people.
Yeah. And I think that a good time to incorporate those conversations are with, and I saw them incorporated, was during these 2 Black Swan events. So one, the growth and the rise of AI is a great time to really think about the, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because what we want to do is be very careful about how we're interjecting AI into programs. And I think if we're smart about it, the things that need to be automated that are required for awareness to be effective should be incorporated first, because those are the things in which we don't want them to be subjective. And it's helpful for us to have a massive way by which to get information to those people who need it. I would also say, if we think about the COVID, so a lot of the transition that organizations did from being in the office to being at home required that they think much more strategically about what the hierarchy of needs were, because they immediately changed. So it was no longer physical space. It was, how do we recreate small offices in everyone's home? How do we ship technology to people? How do we still ensure the protection of our information when there is no perimeter? Meaning wherever our human is, our data is, and now we've got to secure that on the go. If you start to consider Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you have some basic functions that always must be addressed, it immediately becomes important and easy to define the things that must be done in order for it to be successful as a transition. So I like to talk about that, because when I often see that happen is when things might impact the employee experience, right? So whatever it is, that intersection between technology and the human, whatever UX is a part of that, building those basic needs into that conversation is so critical, because what we do is we immediately understand, if we don't address these very critical feature sets or integrations, or if we make it too hard for them to get answers to questions, we're not going to get the impact and the productivity that we're expecting. So I think this rise now of AI is tied to this idea that security must also consider how people use technology, where they're using it, and for what purpose as a part of what we deliver. And I think as we consider that, we'll drive better results in culture and awareness just by the very fact that we thought it through. So workflows, and maybe to your point, Stacy, is security is more a discipline than anything. We like to talk about it in purely technical, but it is a discipline in that the workflows, the processes, and the strategy are often more important than the automation and technology. What are we using to make the decisions is critical before we actually figure out how do we enable it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And I know I have a question for the audience, and while I send that to them, a question for you two both as well. For the ones that are watching, how exactly are you implementing, cyber psychology or human behavior into your present programs? And for you, Jules and Stacy, for those that are kind of going through and you're seeing those come out, for those that are not, what's a good way for them to start implementing this into their programs? Because as people are kind of looking through the comments, they're thinking, they're introspecting on themselves. Oh, maybe I'm not doing this, or maybe I could. What are some ideas that they can start? Because nobody wants to dive right in and try to go all the way up to the top, right? Because that's not going to help out. But how do they progress into this?
Okay.
Sure. Jules, do you want to take it?
Sure. So a lot of the work that I do is on the operations side. And so we look at various domains. And one place I'd say you could incorporate cyber psychology is in the connection between the security team and the help desk. So we know that in order for us to, let's just say, for instance, a phishing campaign. We send out a phishing campaign. The idea is to get as many people as possible to report back. The various channels in which people report, we have buttons, we have, emails to security, we have channels and Slack and Teams. What we want to do is think through, how is it that we can get the quickest response back and give the quickest feedback to the people who've reported? So if we think through that process, because many of us are doing phishing campaigns, we think through, our goal here is to get as many people as possible not to click and then to report if they do. So what we want to do is, thinking through that goal, we want to work backwards and go, who are the kinds of people who are most likely to click, either through what we've seen in the past or just by the very nature of their job. My experience, Jules, working on various security awareness programs, it's typically sales, attorneys, attorneys at a law practice, senior leadership, and then it tends to be sort of admin. And all of those roles tend to be people who are mostly aligned with their front line, meaning they're either public facing, so they want to be quick in their responses, or they tend to be protectors of another level. So admins, they typically are getting emails on behalf of someone else. So they are prone to not wanting to miss things. So they'll click in order to ensure that they've checked everything out. So the question is, with all the different groups in the organization, how do we ensure that each person in their role has a good understanding of what not to click, how to get information to the security team as soon as possible, how to report if necessary, and then how do we ensure that there's automatic feedback back? Thinking through just that one process, and you start to think group by group, you'll get a sense of how to do it across the organization. But I think phishing is easiest because we all have to do it. Many times regulatory requirement. But I think also you can tell security strength by how over time you see the trends in reporting across the organization.
Okay. And I'm gonna take a little bit of a different direction, though. I agree with everything Joel said is amazing. I am one of those big fans of kind of put your own oxygen mask on first. And the fact is, we're looking at record-breaking 94% of CISOs are reporting high related stress and burnout. There's turnover in the security industry with teams and stress. And so I encourage people to take a step back for a second and start with themselves. Going to do a little bit of a mental inventory, and then, but also doing that with your teams, because if your teams aren't happy, if they're overwhelmed, that's where things are going to really start to break down. Right? Is that you've got your analyst, or you've got your SOC person who's looking for things, and then they're tired, or they might, if anybody who's been stressed out, that things start to drop, or you get to disconnect. And so I think if you can take a look at start thinking about, okay, what's going on in my team? What's going on with me? Where am I at? Okay. Yes, these are my stressors. These are my pain points. This is something that's extremely difficult. This is what I'm worried about, and kind of do that self inventory, then expanding that out to your team. And then it kind of spider webs out from there, because if you've got a team that's disconnected, that is tired, that is burnt out, if you personally are not functioning at least at some level of capacity, then when you go and you try to communicate that to other people, it may not come across as cleanly and efficiently as you want it to. So I would say to take that step back and even go almost like a prequel to building out your program is, okay, what are my resources? How are my resources doing? And maintaining that. So along with awareness of security programs and teams and all of the best practices that an organization absolutely needs to run, there's also best practices just from the human behavior side, which is checking in with your team that is doing a very, very high stress job, and checking in with yourself too, to keep on top of where you're at and what you need to do. Because, at the end of the day, every person you interact with has a pain point. And sometimes those pain points can be identified and fingers crossed, sometimes even solved or managed, but not always. But at least you can recognize them and go, okay. And if they have a pain point, how can you make their life easier? If this is somebody who is struggling with passwords or doesn't know how to identify a phishing attack. So what's that blockage? And so really kind of taking a second, starting with yourself, building that empathy, building that compassion, knowing the resources of your team, because your security program can be absolutely amazing, but there is always going to be an increase in problems if you have turnover in your security team, if you have a new CISO that then comes in and changes everything. So you want to take care of your team too, to make sure that you and your team are solid, in a good space, and ready and prepared to help support your organization.
Yes.
That's awesome. I know we had a question come in from Sam on YouTube, and he was asking, what is a good definition to understanding and monitoring red flags?
Just for clarity, is that personal red flags or?
I'm going to lean towards yes, unless Sam would like to elaborate further if he's still with us. But I think it just might mean red flags within the team or the organization.
Oh, okay. Well, the best time to identify red flags, if we're talking teams, is during the hiring process, if you can. I think too many of us, because of the economy, because of layoffs and all sorts of things, we assume that an organization is really just interviewing us. We don't take the time to interview the organization for culture, beyond just fit, because I think we use the word culture fit too much, for health, for wellness, for balance, and to ensure that although the work is important and the expectation is excellence, there is room for humanity, meaning things happen, mistakes happen, people need time off, people have to take care of family or themselves. How is it that an organization handles stress from individuals and within the organization? So I like to invite people to ask questions of people who are working at the organization. I also like to ask the question directly at the tail end of the interview, asking specifically of what the organization values with regard to how it works, how it handles employees. What does the organization value in that space? Because if they tell you that they value an individual's ability to get things done, that's a red flag. Run. Because if that's the only thing they can tell you, that's what you're going to be measured on. But if it's, we value the contribution of people and what they individually bring to the team, the ability for people to collaborate, we like people to ensure that they come to work healthy and they're able to, work in an environment that focuses on mental wellness, then those are indications that, at least they've thought about it. Is it always true? No. But I get nervous when teams are so productivity focused that they miss that people will need time to recover. And your best, highest performers, they won't take the time. And so you've got to give it to them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it comes from the managers having awareness. One thing that I used to do when I would be managing people, just after our one-on-ones or towards the end, I would say, how are you doing? Head above water, underwater? Where are you at? And that answer would just tell me everything. A little underwater, like, okay, now I know. Now I might not, to be fair, be able to do anything about that. But we can have compassion. We can vent. We can share that we're all underwater. We're all feeling stress and have that community. And I think that to Julie's point, right, you're looking at what the organizational culture is. Now, sometimes someone in HR builds out the organizational culture, says, great, unlimited free time or unlimited PTO, have fun with that, yay. And then your manager's like, oh, that's really cute. Okay, anyway, right? And, it's like, okay, that means something. And one of the most amazing things that I ever had a boss, do for me was my child fell down the stairs. I told her, she goes, go home now. Like, you need to be with your kid right now. They're afraid. And I was like, great. I know that, but I don't know that because, I was in freaking out mode. Like, is she okay? And she's like, just be with her. And that awareness and that compassion from a manager meant so much to me that, there's reciprocity because when somebody gives you that allowance to be human, you give it back. And all the studies show that emotional intelligence, psychological safety, the feeling that you matter and that you have a voice and that you're a person, they all increase work productivity.
Yes.
So if you are able to empower your teams to be themselves, and this was one of the things that I thought was really great also about one of the things that was really great about COVID. I should never say that statement. However, one of the things that came from remote work was we are human. All of a sudden you went from I have two daughters. I'm lucky they haven't run in today. They're home from school, right? It happens and we roll with it. Pre-pandemic though, pre all this work from home, your kids were this perfect little picture that sat on your desk, right? Yes. We are human. We have things that happen. We need to support that in each other and allow for that to happen. I saw comments somebody made, organizations do need to see people as people.
Yes.
And that they do care. We like to think that they don't, but then train them to care. And that has to come from organizations, how to have compassionate management.
And then you have to say it, and then your policies have to reflect. Because you can't say we really care about your life, but you must come into the office now immediately or you're fired. Those two don't go together.
No. No, the managers, and there has to be a safe place. And if you're not the person who's comfortable, because not everybody is comfortable with the touchy feelies, like emotional stuff. Not everybody is comfortable saying, how are you doing today? How's your family? All of that. That's fine. But is there somebody else on your team that could do that, or that is that? Because I feel like somebody else is always in there. Somebody is usually the heart and soul of a team or an organization, and lean into that.
And I had to recently make, and I guess the last statement, I had to make a decision as a leader, and I hire people all the time, that I wasn't best suited to comfort and still be the same one who said, we need to get this done. So what you need to do is have somebody who is that safe space for others, so that you have the ability to keep moving forward. And I think we have to be willing to admit our own limitations. And that's one of the things, as a CEO, life has taught me a few lessons. I don't want others to have to learn the way I learned them. But it's been amazing to on this journey, though. It's an amazing journey. Yeah. So, yeah, I love the conversation. I mean, if we have not addressed your questions, let us know in the comments. Happy to follow up. And you know, all of us, I think they've shared our LinkedIn links. Please connect with us offline. But what I want to do next is, Rich and Stacy, thank you for your time. I'm going to transition us to talking more, and you know, I'm hoping you guys are staying with us. I am moving on to Share the Mic in Cyber. So I have a personal connection to our next segment. Share the Mic in Cyber is close to my heart. During COVID, I was one of the first members of their cohort, which is a October timeframe. We have the sharing of the platform. So someone who is an ally sharing the stage and their audience with those of us, Black women, Black professionals in cybersecurity. And the organization was started by Camille Gloucester, Lauren Zabarick, and a few other people. And as a part of that, in the month of August, we are actually giving some opportunity to members of Share the Mic in Cyber in order to talk through many of the initiatives that they have ongoing. I encourage anyone who is a Black professional to join the group. I've had an opportunity to meet a group of wonderful women. Many of them actually are part of a book that I'm releasing. So there is value in this organization. And so I want to transition over to Tennisha Martin and Rebekah Skeete to talk a little from Black Girls Hack to talk about Share the Mic in Cyber.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. You know, I love the title of this segment, Wait Just an Infosec. There's so many different ways you can say that. Wait just an Infosec. Or wait, just an Infosec.
Right?
Well, hello. I know who you are. You want to tell everybody else?
Absolutely. My name is Tennisha Martin. I am the executive director and founder of Black Girls Hack. And we have here...
Yes, and my name is Rebekah Skeete. People call me Beck. And I'm the COO of Black Girls Hack.
Yay! Happy National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Yay!
Or more like secure. I don't know. However you want to do that. Or secure.
I love that you have your incognito mode on.
You know, always. It's like, you can't see me, John Cena style. Or maybe you can. Because my camera's on.
Awesome. So what are we talking about?
So, as you mentioned, it's the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, October. You know, a lot of content is out, whatever. CISA put out, CISA or CISA? Have you heard both ways?
Both ways.
Okay. I'm going to say CISA, because that has a little bit more oomph to it. So CISA put out, there are 4 easy ways to stay safe online, and they've identified a couple. I would think we should focus on one, which is recognize and report phishing. And the reason I think we should talk about that is because everybody has been phished. Whether they think they have or they haven't, there is at least one email from a Nigerian prince sitting in their junk mail that they might not have replied to, but they got it. So that's pretty prevalent. And, you know, if you go to any of these cybersecurity conferences or talks or whatever, business email compromise is still a big daggum deal. So, what say you on the things to look for, how to recognize? That's the first part of it. Recognize and report. For recognition, How do you recognize it? What are you looking for?
So for me, especially when I'm at work, when I see an email that is not expected, so it's not from a person that I normally interact with on a topic that I normally interact with, I'm going to look twice. The second thing I'm going to check when I get that email is whether or not it comes from a corporate email. So like if you work for, sharethemicandcyber.com or .org, I'm going to make sure that it's coming from sharethemicandcyber.org, because if it's not, then obviously I need to take a little an extra look. When I was in the government sector, it was a lot easier to tell because they were actually digitally signed and they would have like a little, key or lock on it. But I think in the private sector, it's a little bit different.
Yes.
What about you?
Wild, Wild West over here. I also err on the side of, and I do this with my phone too. If I don't know you, I'm not picking up. And if I'm not expecting this email, one, I might not even read it, let alone when I read it, my guards are going to be up. If Jim Bob says, "Hey, Rebekah, I've got an Amazon gift card for you." I don't know you, Jim Bob. Why are you sending me an Amazon gift card? Except, honestly, that might be the thing that I would fall for. I like free stuff. But if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So it's definitely something to be aware of. And then random links, and coupled with awkward sentence structure of click the... I'm trying to think of one. I saw something exactly earlier today. It was like, in the in the zone. Now it's so stupid that I can't even remember how to think it, and my mind keeps trying to correct it. But anyway, the point is, if it doesn't look right, it probably isn't.
Absolutely. I think that when we're talking about phishing, there are so many different types of, like, whether SMS or whether it's email. Generally, we're talking about phishing, like someone getting something in their email. I absolutely love, I'll tell a quick story. I was asking Beck one day because I was trying to get into an account, and Beck is the second person that's named on the account. And so she literally called me on the phone and was like, "Hey, I got an email saying that you're trying to get in here. Can you provide verification of who you know?" And she asked me a security question. Like, even though she had me on my phone calling from my phone number, she literally asked me for a security question, which I failed, by the way. Beside the point. So I think it's important to know that, like, phishing emails can come from people that you know. It can also come from people that you don't know. So if it looks like it's out of order, for example, somebody sent me a screenshot of a message that I allegedly sent to them and said, "Hey, I'm in a meeting. I can't talk right now. I need you to buy a gift card and send me the number for it so I can provide it to this client." And it said, signed Tennisha. And they were like, "Did you send this to me?" And, "Oh, it said signed Tennisha Martin." And I was like, "Have you ever seen me use my full government name? Have you ever seen me sign something?" I was like, plus it's in uppercase. Like, I personally am not a fan of uppercase letters. So, like, if it's proper punctuation,
so that's the other thing. So a lot of times people say look for off sentence structure, or people, it looks like English is a second language. Sometimes it's the opposite. It looks too formal, or it's "Dearest Rita," like Lady Bridgerton is the one sending you, "My dearest gentle Rita, can you please click the link enclosed in this email?" No.
This Amazon purchase that you have made requires your immediate attention. We have charged $1,000 to your account, and if you don't respond immediately and give us your credentials, then we will just go ahead and purchase it and have brand new materials.
Now that upsets me. Why do you play with my emotions? They do it on purpose. They're like, "Here's a sense of urgency. Click it, do the thing right now." I got a thing. That seems aggressive, but that's how they come for you. I got a thing that says, I actually got this in the mail. It was a letter in the mail, and it said, "Rebekah, we're suing you. Call this number so you could avoid it." I said, "The devil is a lie. Ain't nobody suing for what?" They're like,
"Snail mail?
What?" I guess, I'm rising up in the game that they're over here trying to catch me in snail mail. Anyway, long story short, I didn't fall for it. I did put my sleuthing cap on, and I went to the website that they said they came from. I looked at their address. It was some P.O. box. I was like, what kind of law firm? Some shady business. I called the company that they said that I owed the money, and I was like, no. Get out of here.
Right. So if you're not sure about whether or not a URL or a link that you're trying to use is suspicious or not, you can use a tool like VirusTotal or an online source to check it and make sure that it is not a malicious link before you click on it, because the next thing you know, they'll have all of your business and all of your money and you'll be sad.
Yep. When in doubt, cut it out. I don't know how to type it, but it works. It rhymes.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are coming up on our time. So this has been our message on phishing, brought to you by Share the Mic in Cyber.
Bye.
All right. Welcome back. Thank you so much to Tennisha and Rebekah from Black Girls Hack. As you know, every month, CISA does a great job, along with the National Cybersecurity Alliance, of putting out different messages that they want us to keep in mind. And phishing and social engineering has been top of mind for all of us. So the suggestions by Tennisha and Rebekah are great. You want to slow down, think about who it's coming from, carefully look at the to and the from sections. And then if you have a question, or let's just say it's within your organization and it's someone you can verify with, go into a different channel to verify that the email is coming from the person you expect to. And then if you're not sure, report it as best as you can. But what I always strive to recommend that people do is, we want cybersecurity to be a lifestyle. We want it to be something that you consider as a part of your everyday life. And the way that you walk around and make decisions about cybersecurity are also considered closely to the way that you protect yourself physically. So your laptop is important because it stores your information, you use it for work, but where you put it, how you keep it in your car, who has access to it, when people come over, is it open and available? Does it have a password assigned? Those are all things that I think we should be keeping in mind. I think the best thing that we can do is recognize that we are human beings and we make mistakes. What we want to do, and I think what we saw from Dr. Stacy Thayer and even Rich Greene, we want to minimize the amount of things that we actually make worse based on our behavior. So like she said, we want to consistently put our own masks on first before we help others. So I like to talk a lot about modeling. We want to model the behavior we want others to see. If each of us commits to being better about the way that we walk and we talk, both online and in the real world, we'll start to see the net effect that other people will see, they'll notice, and they may also take those same steps. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, my name is Juliet Okafor. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. But more importantly, what I want everyone to do is, connect with me at revolutioncyber.com. And what I'm also really happy about this month is I'm part of 15 other women who've released a new book. It's called Securing Our Future, Embracing the Resilience and Brilliance of Black Women in Cybersecurity. I often don't walk into the world discussing my color. I would much more be better recognized for my ideas and how I contribute to a growing, thriving industry. But I think it's important for some of us who consider ourselves sometimes hidden figures to be placed on a platform and for our stories to be heard as a part of the ongoing discussions around cybersecurity. We are here, we exist, and the numbers of us are growing. But I also like to state that I could not be where I am without critical allies, wonderful friends, white males, white women, people of other races and genders, we all coming together to really take a risk and solve big problems, some of them that don't even exist yet. So as we're looking out into the future, where I am always asking people to think through is the future of cybersecurity is quintessentially human. And as a result, the way that we adapt and integrate our humanity into the way we deliver our services and do our work every day will definitely have an impact on the future generations of cybersecurity and on our children and their children. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a wonderful time chatting with you, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wait Just an Infosec podcast. Remember to join us live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for a new episode of Wait Just an Infosec. You can watch at SANS.org/WJAI or go to the SANS LinkedIn or YouTube channels. The Wait Just an InfoSec podcast will be released every Wednesday at noon. Thanks for listening. See you next week.